Good morning, good morning, good morning. Welcome back to Morning Coffee. Thank y'all for kicking it with me. It's a lot going on in the world right now. Like it is ghetto outside. Like it is ghetto here, okay? But let's get into the Diddy trials first. So, for those of you who don't know, it was announced this morning that the prosecution team, so this is the team that's pursuing charges against Diddy, has officially decided to drop some of those charges. Now, they're not dropping all of the charges, they're dropping some. So I'm going to read to you all what TMZ broke the news initially and what's going on. So TMZ says in a stunning move today, the day before closing arguments in Diddy's federal criminal trial in New York City, prosecutors have pulled back on some of the key testimony during the trial, specifically attempted kidnapping. That's one charge that they're letting go of. Attempted arson, also letting go of that charge. And some of the aiding and abetting in sex trafficking charges. Whew, okay. Prosecutors said in a letter to Judge Subramanian, the government is following His Honor's instructions to streamline the jury instructions. So they're saying that they're doing this because they want to streamline the instructions for the jury and make it clear. Although I will say that I'm speculating that the reason that they're dropping some of the charges is because they haven't fully proved some of the charges, which we'll get into in a second. The reality, prosecutors seem to feel they've fallen flat on proving Diddy's alleged kidnapping of former employee Capricorn Kark, and who was taken to a building for a lie detector test, and Cassie when she was allegedly held hostage in a hotel in London. More surprising, the prosecution is not pursuing the attempted arson claim that Diddy blew up Kid Cudi's car as jealous rage. Now, I think the reason that they're not pursuing the charges against Diddy for the Kid Cudi's car is because they didn't have enough evidence to actually tie him to that crime. So if you remember, there was something about fingerprints being destroyed and the Molotov cocktail, whatever, that not being able to figure out whose fingerprints it was and saying that it was a female. So they're not able to tie it, I think, close enough to what the requirements are for each of the charges. Prosecutors are not dropping the various sex trafficking charges, one of the elements, only the elements of them, and specifically aiding and abetting. So he is still being prosecuted and charged with sex crimes. They're not still pursuing the aiding and abetting, right? So the way that they said that all of the employees work together in order to commit these organized crimes, they're saying that they're not pursuing that anymore. Prosecutors do say in their letter they want the instructions that they want an instruction that just because women, Cassie and Jane, gave prior sexual consent to certain acts, it does not mean that they can never be withdrawn. So I think this is common sense that we all already know this. But they're making it crystal clear that they want the jurors to understand, which I think is like common knowledge these days, that someone can say yes to a sexual act now and tomorrow they can withdraw their consent, and that's not illegal and there's nothing wrong with that. But they want to make that clear, and I feel like that's fair because a lot of what the defense team is trying to make a case around is that Cassie and Jane said yes at some point, and there's text messages of them saying yes and they enjoy certain things. But the prosecutors are saying yes, they did say that at a point, but when they wanted to stop, it didn't stop. And as far as sex trafficking, prosecutors want the jurors to know neither physical restraint of alleged victims nor commercial sex act are required to prove coercion in sex trafficking. So basically they're saying that you don't have to hold somebody hostage and have them tied up for it to be force or coercion. Force or coercion includes an abusive relationship, someone who has power and privilege over you, so having a significant amount of money. So all that to say, the charges are not being dropped completely. However, there are still being charges, but they are taking away some of the charges, I think because they weren't able to prove them, because the list of requirements can be long for some of the charges, and they have to be able to, again, they have to be able to prove beyond a reasonable doubt, right? And if the defense team can create reasonable doubt, then they're not going to stick. And I think what the prosecution team is doing is trying to make sure that some of it sticks. So they're trying to take away the things that can take. They're trying to take away some of the things that can distract him. Now, distract them from making a decision to charge him. Now, I do not think that Diddy is going to get found guilty on all charges. I never really thought that in this case, not because he's not guilty, but because some of them are really hard and intense to prove. I believe that Diddy is guilty of all the things being brought against him. That's me personally. I know some folks and I see some folks saying free Diddy. I choose to ignore that because I personally think that anyone who believes that Diddy should be a free man is probably abusive as well, right? Like, that's just the reality of it. I truly believe that anybody who believes that Diddy should walk away from this a free man and is screaming free Diddy, it's because they also are abusive and don't believe that women should be able to consent and say no at certain times. Because if you heard this testimony, if you listened to what was being said this entire time, then you'll clearly know that there were moments of clear no. There were people who were clearly saying they did not want to continue to be involved. And just because someone had done it one time doesn't mean that they have to do it again and again and again. And that would make you an R word. I'm not going to say the word because I don't want to get banned, but that would make you an R word. So if you believe that he needs to walk away a free man, it's probably because you engage in similar types of crimes and you don't want to convince yourself that you're a bad person. And some people are just abusive, right? Because anyone who would think that a beat down from a woman is justified is abusive, and also that would just make you a weak man. I just want to be clear, like, men who put their hands on women are weak. I don't really care what, and this is just, again, my opinion. I don't really care what the reason was for it. Only weak men put their hands on women. You don't, a man that knows he's strong and is clear on him being strong doesn't need to put his hands on women because you already know the strength of a man. So only weak men hit women. That's my thing on that. I also want to say that yesterday Diddy spoke in the trial for the first time where he thanked the judge and said that he clearly revoked his right to testify in his own trial. And so people were just excited because they weren't sure what was going to happen. And they were like, oh, is he going to speak? Is he going to speak? And he didn't. So honestly, and truly, I believe some of this is giving scam likely also, right? Like, I never thought they were going to pursue all of the charges against him because that's just not realistic to what consistently happens. And because he's Diddy, right? And I think that the reality of it is that Diddy did cover up some of these things well, which made it hard for them to prove. And a lot of people got immunity. So did they testify fully? We don't know. But we'll find out as soon as next week. So they're saying that the closing arguments for both the prosecution and the defense team are starting as early as tomorrow. So the jurors don't have to be in court today. They are home. The court, meaning the judge and the prosecution and defense team, are going to meet to talk about what charges are being brought against Diddy and officially. And they're going to talk about what the requirements are for each of those charges. So that they can give the jury instructions. Tomorrow, the closing arguments will begin being made. They're assuming that they could go through Friday. And as soon as the closing arguments are done, the jury will get instructions on how to deliberate. Deliberation should start, and they're saying that we will likely have an outcome for whether or not Diddy is found guilty on all of those charges as soon as next week. So stay tuned. It's getting to the end. It's getting sticky. We're going to see what happens. But as of right now, that is what we know. Now, moving on from the Diddy topic, we're going to talk about DDG, LMNOP, whatever his name is. In the same way we talked about all the things that didn't go in his favor, there has been a ruling that did go in his favor by the judge. And the judge said that she thinks it's reasonable for DDG to visit Halo in Italy. I just want to say, Halo is in Italy. Okay. She thinks it's reasonable for DDG to visit Halo in Italy, but that she required an independent monitor due to Hallie's concerns. The judge also says that if these visits are permitted, she will put in place an order barring DDG from posting about the child on social media during this time frame. The lawyers are now looking into availability of professional monitors in Rome, and they're set to return to court for further discussion on this matter on Thursday, June 26th. DDG denies the domestic violence claims and has filed a competing custody case of his own, claiming Bailey is actually the abuser in their relationship and has repeatedly threatened to harm her self-harm and as a means of emotional manipulation. So what this means is that DDG can go visit his, they will finalize, so it hasn't fully been permitted yet. We will figure out if it is permitted on Thursday, okay? We don't know yet. It is in the works, but the judge thinks it's reasonable. So what the judge is saying is that by Thursday, she'll make a ruling on if it's permitted, and if it is permitted, that he cannot post anything about his child on social media. And I'm assuming it's because at this point, it seems like his son is being used as a tool, like a kind of like a leverage for each other. And also, I think the level of scrutiny for the child is getting a little weird, right? Like the level of involvement that grown men are having in this conversation about custody for a child is a little weird. So they're saying that they should not be allowed to talk about the little boy on social media anymore. And I kind of agree. I don't think that y'all should be, I don't necessarily think that it's appropriate for us to be in that level of detail of a child in a custody battle. And if it's truly a custody battle and you just want to see your kid, there's no reason for you to talk about him on social media. If your goal is to simply have visits and time with your kid, I don't see why you need to post about that on social media. Your main concern should be reconnecting with your kid. But I made a revelation the other day, and this is kind of a sidebar. I was talking to my barber about this, and he was asking me what my beef is with DDG. And I was like, I just think he's corny. Like, I think he, I'm not a hater, right? Like, I think he's doing big things in the streaming world, and I think that's good, and he's opening doors for streamers. But I also want to say, I've always thought he was lame. And then my barber made a really good point, and it's like, I truly can't stand DDG fans. Like, the fans make it so much worse for him. Like, DDG fans are insufferable, and I think that's really why I just can't ever get behind him, because the fact that you encourage people to be this insufferable to the mother of your children and to your child, it's just like, they're so insufferable that no matter what DDG does, he's going to be considered lame to me. And I don't, and again, I'm not a hater, so I think he is doing his thing in the streaming world. He's making money, he's making sounds and waves. I can't take that away from him, but his fans are so insufferable. So whatever he's doing in the streaming world that attracts these kinds of people just make you lame. And the fact that they're all willing to attack your baby mother just lets me know that your fans are like horrible people who also just want to attack women and children and are only making a space for that. Like these people are the men that are attracted to DDG's content don't also want to take care of their kids. They're all miserable. They all are living in their mom's basement. Like his fans are the reason that he gets the level of hate, outside of the fact that he's allegedly abusive. But I just wanted to clarify that, because I actually I'm not a fan, but I also am not a hater. But his fans make you want to not deal with him ever again, or to know nothing about him. They're insufferable. So, and their behavior is childish. They behave like children. Okay. In other news, let's talk Karmelo Anthony. So yesterday, if you didn't get to join my live, or if you haven't gone on my YouTube, make sure you go to the YouTube channel and lock in. The link is in the bio. We talked about Karmelo Anthony and the fact that there was an official indictment being brought against him in the case for Karmelo Anthony and Austin Metcalf. So an indictment, so what people hear versus what is true are two different things. So the indictment simply means that The prosecution team presented evidence in front of a grand jury. The grand jury has decided that there's enough evidence for it to go to trial. So now it is going to go to trial. So now that it's going to trial, evidence will be presented by the defense and by the prosecution team. He is being charged with first-degree murder, but it has to go in front of a jury. So the defense team, which is Karmelo Anthony's team, is saying that they're still taking the route of self-defense, which I absolutely agree with, just so we're clear. I'm still in agreement with the self-defense 100%. They're saying they're taking the route of self-defense and that they're going to continue to fight the charges being brought up against Karmelo Anthony. And the court date or the trial date hasn't been set yet, so we're waiting for a trial date to be set. But his legal team has made it very clear that they plan to continue to fight it. You know what I'm saying? So I also want to say that it was brought up by TMZ that they spoke with Austin Metcalf's father. Now, Austin Metcalf's father is upset because they've made it very clear, the prosecution team, that they are not looking for the death penalty in this situation. They're not pursuing the death penalty for Karmelo Anthony. One, because he's 17 years old and he doesn't meet the requirements. And two, because I don't think that matches what they're fighting against. And I think that if they were seeking the death penalty, that they would immediately lose the case. Now, first-degree murder does hold a sentence of up to life in prison if he is found guilty of first-degree murder. But we don't know that that's going to happen. It has to go in front of a jury, and they have to be able to prove. And what his team said that was really good was that they have to be able to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that it was not self-defense. Okay? So that doesn't mean that the prosecution team, their job now is to make it clear that it was not self-defense. If they cannot prove without a shadow of a doubt that it was not self-defense, then he will not get charged with first-degree murder, but we just have to see what the evidence is. And yes, there's alleged video, but they're saying that in the video, both Karmelo Anthony and Austin Metcalf are not identifiable, and that the video is from a really far distance, and it's hard to make out what's going on in the video. So there's that. Last but not least, in the primary mayoral elections in New York City, shout out to New York City, Zoran, who is running for mayor, who was running against Cuomo in a Democratic race, Zoran has become the official Democratic nominee in the election, which is good because he's actually really a liberal candidate. He believes in freezing rent and lowering prices of things, like all the things that we care about. And so he was running against Cuomo. Cuomo conceded last night.